I've carried bodies out of blizzards before. Adults, hunters, even soldiers. But I had never cried over someone who weighed less than 10 pounds. 12 years doing search and rescue in northern Montana taught me things most people don't want to know. Like how cold doesn't just kill, it erases, turns living things into statues, into questions nobody wants to answer. That February morning, the radio crackled with coordinates for a dump litter near mile marker 47 on the old logging road. Wind speeds were hitting 70 miles per hour. Visibility was gone. The temperature had bottomed out at -38. We all knew what we'd find. Puppies don't survive storms like this. But when I reached the site and spotted the shapes in the snow, one of them wasn't lying down like the others. One of them was sitting, back straight, paws tucked, head bowed forward like he was still waiting for someone to come home. A 3-month-old German Shepherd puppy, frozen solid in a position that made no sense. Dogs don't die sitting up. They collapse. They curl inward. They surrender. This one hadn't. What we discovered beneath him in those next few minutes didn't just break protocol. It shattered every single person on my team. Because sometimes heroism doesn't look like strength. Sometimes it looks like a puppy who didn't understand death, but understood love enough to stay. Atlas never learned his name. Never fetched a ball. Never got the chance to grow up. This is the story of Atlas. A puppy who never should have been a hero. Who was too young to understand sacrifice. Who made a choice that will change everyone who touches this story. All I'm asking is that you don't let his final act disappear into the snow. Hit subscribe. 1 second of your time to make sure his story doesn't end in silence. But what he did in his final moments will haunt me for the rest of my life. The truck's heater roared, but it didn't matter. Cold like this finds its way in through every seal, every gap, every breath you take. I rode shotgun while Martinez drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. In the back, Jensen and Carol sat silent, staring out at the white void swallowing the road ahead. Nobody was talking. We all knew what this was. The radio crackled. Dispatch checking in, asking for our ETA. Martinez clicked the receiver twice. Can't talk. Still moving. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against snow that fell sideways, driven by winds that made the truck shudder and groan. I'd done this drive 100 times. Logging road, 12 cuts through 40 miles of nothing, abandoned lumber sites, burned-out ranger stations, stretches of wilderness where cell service died 20 years ago. It's where people dump things they don't want found. Furniture, trash, animals. We'd pulled a dog from out here 2 winters ago. Boxer mix, left tied to a tree. We were 3 hours too late. I still remember how the rope had frozen stiff in my hands. How long since the call came in? Jensen asked from the back, voice flat. 9 hours, I said. Nobody responded. 9 hours at -38 degrees. 9 hours and 70 miles per hour winds. There wasn't a calculation. That ended well. Martinez slowed as the road narrowed, drifts rising on both sides like walls. The GPS put us half a mile out, but visibility was maybe 20 feet. I scanned the white, looking for shapes, for movement, for anything that didn't belong. The truck lurched to a stop. Martinez killed the engine. Ahead of us, the road disappeared beneath a snowdrift taller than the hood. We'd have to walk from here. I pushed the door open, and the cold hit like a fist, wind tearing at my face, snow stinging my eyes. I pulled my mask up and moved forward, the team falling in behind me. Our boots crunched through the crust. The world was white noise and howling wind. 50 yards in, I saw them, dark shapes barely visible through the storm. Small, scattered, unmoving. My chest tightened. We moved closer, flashlights cutting through the snow. 4 shapes, maybe 5, all half buried. Indistinct lumps that could have been anything if you didn't know what you were looking for. But I knew. Then I saw the one that didn't fit. 30 feet to the left, separated from the others, not lying down like the rest. Sitting. I stopped walking. Raised my hand. The team froze behind me. Evan. Martinez's voice barely carried over the wind. I didn't answer. I was staring at that shape, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Dogs don't die sitting up. I took a step forward, then another, my flashlight beam narrowing on the small figure crusted in snow and ice. And that's when I realized it wasn't just sitting. It was waiting. I've seen plenty of dead dogs. You learn what to expect. They curl tight, trying to conserve heat, or they collapse mid-stride, legs splayed, caught in the act of running. Sometimes they're tucked against a tree, a rock, anything that offered shelter that wasn't enough. This wasn't that. I moved closer, each step deliberate, my breath foggy inside my mask. The shape came into focus through the swirling snow. A puppy, German shepherd, 3 months old, maybe 4, sitting perfectly upright. His back was straight, paws tucked neatly beneath him, head bowed forward just slightly, like he was waiting for someone to call his name. Snow had crusted over his tan and black fur, turning him into something carved from ice. Frost clung to his eyelashes. His small body was rigid, frozen solid, but the position... Jesus, Carol whispered behind me. Martinez stepped up beside me, his flashlight beam joining mine. That's not. Dogs don't. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Jensen came around the other side, staring. How is he sitting like that? He's not, I said quietly. He was, before he froze. But that didn't make sense either. When hypothermia hits, animals panic. They move erratically, desperately. They don't sit at attention like they've been trained. They don't hold form. The team had gone silent. Just the wind howling around us, snow driving into our faces. I knelt down in front of the puppy, my knees sinking into the drift. Up close, I could see the details, the way eyes had formed in delicate crystals across his muzzle, the rigid curl of his small paws, the way his head tilted just slightly downward, like he'd been looking at something, protecting something. I reached out, my gloved hand hovering inches from his frozen fur. My throat tightened. Hey, buddy, I whispered, though I don't know why. Words don't change anything out here. But then I saw it. Beneath him, under his chest where his small body curved forward. A shadow, a shape, something tucked against him in the space between his front legs and the snow. My pulse kicked up. Martinez, I said, my voice tight. Bring the tools. We need to clear the ice. Why? He asked, but he was already moving toward the truck. I didn't answer. I was staring at the puppy, at the way his body was angled, positioned, deliberate, protective, because he wasn't sitting for himself, I said. He was sitting for someone else. Martinez came back with the small pickaxe and heat gun. We worked carefully, chipping away the ice that had fused the puppy to the ground. Carol held the light steady, while Jensen cleared snow from around the base. Every stroke felt sacred, like we were excavating something holy. Easy, I said, as Martinez worked the edge of the axe beneath the frozen layer. Don't shift him yet. The ice cracked, gave way, and in the space beneath the puppy's chest, tucked against his small body, I saw it. Tan fur, black markings. Another puppy. Oh, God, Carol breathed. This one was smaller, maybe the runt, curled in a tight ball, pressed against the sitting puppy's belly, sheltered in the curve of his body. Jensen moved faster now, clearing the snow, his hands shaking. I leaned in close, put my hand near the smaller puppy's muzzle. The faintest warmth, a whisper of breath. It's alive, I said. The words hung in the frozen air. Martinez stared. How? But I already knew. We all did. The sitting puppy, this tiny 3-month-old, hadn't curled up to save himself, hadn't tried to run, to find shelter, to escape. He'd positioned himself between the wind and his sibling, used his own body as a shield, stayed perfectly still while the cold killed him inch by inch, because moving meant exposing the one beneath him. He'd chosen this. I imagined it. The wind is screaming. The temperature dropped. His small body shaking, failing, shutting down. And through it all, holding position, not running, not saving himself, just staying. Get the blankets, I said, my voice cracking. Both of them. Now. Jensen sprinted for the truck. Carol was already on the radio, calling ahead to Dr. Edwards at the emergency clinic. Martinez and I lifted the sitting puppy, still frozen in position, and wrapped him carefully. His body was rigid, locked in that final act. We placed him gently in the transport crate. The smaller puppy came next, barely breathing, hypothermic but alive. We wrapped it in heating pads, held it close. The truck engine roared to life. Martinez drove faster than he should have, the vehicle fishtailing on ice. But none of us said a word. I sat in the back, staring at the puppy who'd stayed sitting. Snow melted off his frozen fur in the truck's warmth, but his position remained unchanged. I reached out, touched his small head. "You stayed?" I whispered. He'd never understand what that meant, but I would, for the rest of my life. Dr. Leslie Edwards met us at the clinic door before we'd even killed the engine. 20 years in emergency veterinary medicine, most of it in rural Montana. She'd seen everything: maulings, poisonings, animals hit by semis, and somehow still breathing. Nothing rattled her. She took one look at the bundle in Jensen's arms, and her expression shifted. "Hypothermia?" she asked. "Already moving." "Severe," I said. "Maybe 9 hours of exposure." -38. She nodded once, took the surviving puppy, and disappeared into the exam room. Her team moved like clockwork behind her, warming blankets for lines, heated oxygen. Efficient, practiced, no wasted motion. Martinez, and I carried the other one, the one who'd stayed sitting. We placed him on the steel table in the second exam room, under the fluorescent lights. He looked smaller than he had in the snow. His fur was matted, still partially frozen. His position unchanged, back straight, paws tucked, head bowed. Dr. Edwards came in 10 minutes later, pulling off latex gloves. The survivor stable. Critical, but stable. Her eyes moved to the table. To Atlas. She went quiet. She approached slowly, like you would something fragile. Ran her hands along his small body, checking joints, rigor, temperature. Then she looked at Martinez. "Get me the portable scanner." We watched as she ran the imaging wand across his torso, his legs, his chest. The screen flickered with grayscale shapes, organs, bones, frozen tissue. She stared at the monitor for a long time. "His organs failed in sequence," she said finally, her voice different now. Softer. "Heart last. But there's no panic response. No stress indicators in the muscle tissue." She turned to look at us. "He didn't fight it." "What does that mean?" Martinez asked. Dr. Edwards set the scanner down, touched the puppy's head with 2 fingers. "It means he chose not to move. Hypothermia hurts. It burns. Every instinct tells you to run, to thrash, to do something." She paused. "He overrode all of that." "Why?" Jensen's voice cracked. "Because moving would have exposed the other puppy." Dr. Edwards looked at me, and for the first time in 2 decades of knowing her, I saw her eyes glisten. He didn't fight the cold. He endured it. The room went silent, except for the hum of equipment and the distant sound of monitors from the other room, where his sibling clung to life. We stood there, 4 hardened rescuers and a veterinarian, staring at a puppy who'd made an impossible choice. And nobody knew what to say. 2 hours later, Atlas had thought enough to move. Dr. Edwards said we could transport him to the facilities that handle remains. Respectfully, properly. She'd done everything she could, documented his condition, taken samples, written up the report that would become part of the record. But before we moved him, I needed a moment. I stood alone in the exam room, just me and the puppy on the steel table. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone had closed the door, giving me privacy I didn't ask for but needed. His body had softened. The rigid posture had relaxed slightly, though you could still see how he'd been sitting. Paws tucked, back straight, like he'd been waiting for a command that never came. I reached out, touched his head. His fur was damp now, not frozen. Soft. That's when I saw them. Beneath his eyes. 2 thin trails, slightly darker than the surrounding fur. Condensation. Moisture that had frozen against his face during those final moments when he still had breath, still had warmth. It looked like crying. I knew it wasn't. I knew it was just physics. Warm breath meeting sub-zero air. Ice forming where moisture touched fur. But God, it looked like tears. Like he'd been crying as he stayed, as the cold took him, as he protected his sibling with the last warmth his small body could give. Something broke in me. Not cracked. Broke. I dropped to my knees, hands pressed flat against the table's edge, and the sound that came out of me wasn't something I recognized. My forehead fell forward against the cold steel. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry we were late." The door opened. Martinez, Jensen, Carol. Dr. Edward behind them. They didn't say anything. Didn't tell me to pull it together or that I'd done what I could. Martinez had his hand over his mouth, eyes red. Jensen turned away, shoulders shaking. Carol wiped her face and didn't bother hiding it. Dr. Edward stood in the doorway, arms crossed tight, jaw clenched. We were rescuers. We'd carried soldiers. We'd pulled bodies from wreckage. We'd zipped bags and written reports and moved on because that's what the job required. But this puppy, 3 months old, too young to understand death, too innocent to know what sacrifice meant, had taught us something we'd all forgotten. That love doesn't need understanding. It just needs to stay. I lifted my head, looked at Atlas one last time, and I knew I'd carry this forever. The surviving puppy made it through the night. Dr. Edwards called at 6 a.m. I hadn't slept, just sat in my truck in the clinic parking lot, watching snow fall under the streetlights, replaying everything. "He's stable," she said. "You should come see him." I found her in the recovery room, standing over a warming crate where a tiny ball of tan and black fur lay curled on heated blankets, fur line running to his front leg, oxygen sensor clipped to his ear, but breathing, moving slightly. Alive. "He shouldn't be," Dr. Edwards said quietly. 9 hours in those conditions. Core temperature was 79 degrees when you brought him in. Anything below 94 is critical. Below 85 is usually fatal. But he made it because of his brother. She looked at me. The body heat, the windbreak, even those few degrees of protection. That's what kept him on this side of the line. Her voice dropped. "Atlas saved him, Evan. Medically speaking, there's no other explanation." I knelt beside the crate. The puppy's eyes were closed, but his small chest rose and fell. Steady, determined. "What are you going to call him?" Dr. Edwards asked. I thought about it, about the storm, about Atlas holding position, facing into the wind, shielding his sibling from the worst of it, about directions you can't change and choices that define everything. "North," I said. "Over the next 3 days, I visited twice a day. I watched the North grow stronger. I watched him lift his head, take food, and try to stand on wobbling legs. He had the same markings as Atlas, same dark mass across his face, same intelligent eyes. When North finally walked, unsteady, uncertain, he moved toward me and pressed his nose against my hand, just like his brother probably would have. My throat tightened. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, kneeling down. North tilted his head, ears perking up, trying to understand. I thought about Atlas, about frost tears and impossible choices, about a puppy who never got to hear his name. I looked at North, alive because someone loved him enough to die in his place. "I'm going to make you a promise," I said, my voice steady now. "You're never going to be cold again. You're never going to be alone. And your brother's story, what he did for you, everyone's going to know." North licked my hand. I picked him up, held him close, and let myself believe that sometimes, even after the worst loss, something survives. 3 weeks later, I walked into Dr. Edwards' clinic and North came running, not wobbling anymore, not uncertain, running, ears bouncing, tail wagging, that full-body joy puppies have before the world teaches them to hold back. He skidded to a stop at my feet, sat perfectly, and looked up at me with those same dark, intelligent eyes. Atlas's eyes. My chest tightened. I knelt down and North climbed into my lap, licking my face, whining that high puppy whine. That means I remember you and I'm safe and thank you all at once. Dr. Edwards stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling softly. "He's doing well," she said. "No lasting damage. No complications. He's going to be fine." I nodded, unable to speak. I buried my face in North's fur and let the tears come, because he was alive, Because Atlas wasn't. Because sometimes survival and sacrifice are the same story told from different angles. You know what I keep thinking about? Dr. Edwards said after a moment. She moved closer, sat down beside me on the floor. We spend so much time defining heroism as loud, dramatic, running into fires, facing down danger. She reached out, scratched behind North's ears. But Atlas didn't roar. He didn't charge. He just stayed. He curled around his brother and endured something unbearable because moving meant losing him. Her voice caught. That's a different kind of courage. The kind nobody sees. The kind that doesn't ask for recognition. I held North tighter. He was 3 months old. I said quietly. He didn't understand what he was doing. Maybe, Dr. Edwards said, or maybe he understood the only thing that mattered. North licked my hand and settled against my chest, warm and alive and unaware of the cost of his survival. I thought about that moment in the snow, about the sitting puppy with frost tears on his face, about how we'd found him, not collapsed, not defeated, but still in position, still protecting. Atlas never learned his name, never fetched a ball, never got to grow up, but he changed everyone who touched his story. I stood, holding North, and made myself a promise. I'm going to tell people what you did, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to North or to the memory of his brother. I'm going to make sure everyone knows. Don't let him disappear into the snow. Some stories are too important to stay silent.